This is why it happens. This is the pricing issue. This is the network issue. This is a commission issue, sort of a thing.
I mean, Advocata Institute is, I know, one of the most globally renowned in terms of being some of the best new think tanks. You've been awarded that twice, I think, and you haven't even reached 10 years yet.
I get a lot of criticism because I haven't really studied it in any formal setup. Now we are using jet fuel for cooking. There's a mafia going on in Colombo. We only got to know because a female inmate had to climb to the roof. IMF is not a solution for all problems. Why we had to go to IMF was we were so badly managed. We really did not have any other option.
Mr. Dhananath Fernando, thank you for being on our podcast from the island.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me. I'm excited and congratulations. I watched the content.
Oh, awesome.
So excited, and I shared it with a couple of people.
Awesome.
Recommending to watch. So
Thank you.
Highly recommended.
Thank you.
Awesome. So Dhananath, tell us a little bit about your background. Well, give us a little bit about your early life. What happened? What's the journey been?
Sure. I call myself a failed middle class product because I'm the only child in the family and I come from very humble beginnings. And as a result, of course, my parents wanted to make me a doctor. So I studied biosciences. I think I did because I did not have a choice, I did quite well. I tried 2 attempts to get to the medical college. First attempt, it was 3 C's. Second attempt, it was 2 A's and 1 C. And how the Z score calculated is when you're a biology student, if you get you should get a A to shoot your Z score up. But if you're a mathematics student, to get into engineering, you have to get A pass for chemistry because it's the maths, it's the tricky thing. So, but I could not get A for physics. It was a C pass. So, as a result, I could not enter the medical faculty. I ended up at the bioscience science faculty at the University of Colombo and studied bioscience, biochemistry, and botany. But I'm a 100% Morocco boy as well. I studied at St. Sebastian's College from grade 1 to till A levels, and then entered University of Colombo. So yeah, that's how it started.
So, I mean, Advocata Institute is, I know, one of the most globally renowned in terms of being some of the best new think tanks. You've been awarded that twice, I think, and you haven't even reached 10 years yet. That's next year, 10-year anniversary. And you started off going into the science field. How did you get into the economics field? I'm also aware that, you come from very humble beginnings. You couldn't speak a word of English. So maybe if you could tell the audience about
that. So not many people believe this story, and I get also reasonable criticism also for not having an economic background, like formal economic background, and commenting on economic issues, which I like. But I think that's my strength. So yes, I had an interest on economics and not politics, but understanding how it happens and all that since I was a schoolboy. So
You were curious.
Yeah, I was curious, and I did debating and all that since grade 6, 7. But of course, as I said, since my parents wanted to make me a doctor, I pursued that route. But their interest was always there. And then when I actually at the university, I asked my dean whether I can take a course on management or economics on the science faculty. Because I knew in Jawaharlal that option was available, like even as an elective course. But in our university, that option wasn't given. In terms of English, yes, of course, since we were coming from a very humble beginning, I mean, none of my parents spoke a word of English. Come or go, like even those words were not used at home. So it was difficult. Of course, I studied English at school, but there were no one to basically speak English. I mean, with whom are you going to speak with? So as a result, my English language was quite poor. I think still I make a lot of mistakes when I speak or when I write. But I made I worked very hard to improve that. Hard in the sense, of course, I had like a the way that I did it was pretty much again self-learning method. I used to read the Island editorial. Thanks to Captain Elmo. He said Prabhat is you just check his writing, and then I basically wrote, like, I read the news story, I read the editorial, I read as much as possible, and I basically write the word and the English meaning, and if I can't pronounce it in Sinhala. And also I used to, like, capture like nice phrases, like Sri Lanka is not even a dot in the map, so I used to write it,
Interesting.
and then try to use it wherever
In a
it is
sentence.
possible.
Why were you motivated to even try to do that?
Interestingly, I hate English. I was coming from a very, I won't say nationalistic, but I was in the belief that Sinhala is like the greatest thing. Even I was so crazy. My university friends will provide evidence. Even when I was in university, I used to wear T-shirts things written in Sinhala, like on my hand painting.
Right.
And one of the interesting way that I did it was I used to wear the other side, the kanapita.
Right.
And I was wearing the kanapita, and I used to write, on the pocket or like here, I wrote it as kanapita. So it was like the brand,
I see.
But it was like hilarious when I think about it now, because when I was traveling public transport, people were saying me, "Malli me, then I used to say,
That's actually quite brilliant.
So
Could have started a T-shirt business.
I could have. That was the plan at one point. I thought maybe, but because I was thinking, like, the Sinhala thing was, I used to argue with my college students who could speak good English. Look, even the words, it's so complicated, and the Sinhala is like the greatest language and all that, which I think it's an excellent language.
Yeah.
But then later I realized, my knowledge is pretty much, quite
Constrained,
limited. Yes. Because of that, and also I got slowly exposed to the world. But till then, I was pretty much believing in that, all sorts of, Sri Lanka is there's no better country than Sri Lanka. Of course, I haven't traveled outside by then, but all sorts of those ideas were there. So that was the reason that's why I really didn't want to engage with English to begin with, because I was like, you are the colonial, this English, British, all that thing. Yeah, so that was the reason probably I got myself distant from English.
Right.
But then when I entered the university, I realized, because it was all taught in English medium, then I slowly got exposed. And that's where I met Captain Elmo at one point, and he said he had an excellent library. So he gave, like, he trained me quite a lot. It was not many people knew when I was at the beginning of my career at Breakthrough Business Intelligence. So after university, I first joined MS Holdings for my internship. It was in Nittavur. So I got a sense of, like, manufacturing, lean manufacturing and all that. And then I joined a startup company called Breakthrough Business Intelligence, which is a market research company. So there I was writing a lot of emails, and then Captain got me engaged with Candlelight
Right.
for his Swim for Safety project, and then I was heading another project on university graduates career development. So I was writing a lot of emails.
Right.
So he gave me an option, which I cannot value it in any monetary terms, because I used to write probably about 80 emails a day, all with, like, completely bad English. And he said, like, you BCC me, and I will correct it and send it. Like, so most of the emails he corrected and sent it to me. So that's how I slowly started improving English. And then, yes, speaking to people. It was a hard journey. And I still have, like, those books which I write the words which I wasn't familiar with. But the good thing is, I think I was a little, since I had done debating, I was a little confident, but I have done, mistakes, which are quite shameful mistakes I have done, which is, at that point it was quite shameful, but I think it was because, of course, I really didn't have that background.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's nothing shameful about
course.
it.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, that was the journey of English, but I really enjoyed because I think it shaped my courage mainly. Because I wasn't, because then Captain Elmo got me to this AK Lit Fest, which all like, Ashok Ferry and my goodness, these are like
Right,
the
yeah.
cream of the cream.
Full of literature, right?
Full of
Yeah.
literature.
That's a trilingual literary festival. Right.
So
okay.
after the
Got it.
Candlelight project, he wanted to get me involved in this one, and that's where I really got,
Nice,
and I've
exposed.
written this on Facebook. In fact, at the very first AK Lit Fest, so I could do comparing and all that in Sinhala. So AK Lit Fest at the inauguration ceremony, he told me to do the comparing, but he didn't mention the language. It was a trilingual. I was under the impression that I can just like say good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and slowly shift to Sinhala and do it. And then I think I got, because I also got, my confidence was low because when I see Ashok Ferry, Malinda
Sure.
Seneviratna and all of them,
You're next.
exactly. So I said like, I think I got confused morning and evening because I said instead of good morning, I said good evening
Okay.
before I shifted to Sinhala. And everyone was laughing because I had a problem like because of, since the language wasn't familiar, like when you say morning, whether it's like morning or morning, I wasn't,
I
because I
see.
knew the
Right.
difference. So I wasn't sure when I say morning whether I pronounce it right.
Right.
But I could have nicely pronounced good evening, ladies
So
and
you went with
gentlemen.
good evening.
So because of with that I have gone with good evening. When people laughed, I realized what happened. Okay, then yeah. But yeah, so, jokes apart. So yeah, so that was my English story, which I still learn. Yeah.
So it was basically that momentum that you got. So you got exposed to doing things that you didn't
Correct.
know anything about.
Yeah.
And would you say you got momentum from that? That gave you confidence?
Yeah, absolutely. And then I realized also, because I was under the impression that people would be judging me based on my language.
Right.
After one point, I realized, no, that's not true. Because I was under the impression, okay, people will laugh when you do a mistake and all that. But after, yes, the more that I made mistakes, then I realized that is not true. And I got that first-hand experience, not that someone said that no one would laugh. Of course, I have heard that advice many times before I
yeah.
tried English. But then I realized, even when I went on some of the TV programs, I said, look, and it's a separate story, but I went for a Sinhala TV interview when they wanted to give a cut in English. I said, I'm so sorry, my English is not good. I will make mistakes and it may not reflect good innovation. They said, no, fine. As long as you can explain, that doesn't matter. So I thought, okay. So then that means, on a national TV, doing of course you cannot, you are not allowed to do mistakes by purpose. But I think with that I realized, okay, that's not, maybe there's my initial perception wasn't the
People don't care as much as you think they do. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Interesting.
Yeah. So that was the beginning.
So when you started learning economics, you did that all in English. And this
Yes.
was during the same sort of time period.
Absolutely. So
Why did you want to switch?
yeah, so that's also another interesting story. So I did bioscience, biochemistry, and then I, of course, if you do bioscience, biochemistry, ideally you should get you should do a special degree and get a scholarship to the US. Of course, I could not do that because I am the only child, and my parents, they were in their mid 60s, early 70s. When I was like pretty much graduating, and by the time actually when I entered the university, both of them have retired, and they did not have a pension. So I have to also consider those factors as well.
Yeah, of course.
So I could not go abroad, and even of course we did not really have the means to do it, like pursue that as a private university. So the only option left out was anyway a state university. But since my heart was also there on economics and all that, I was reading and associating, and I was volunteering some of these young movements and all that. So I had a sense, like for an example, why our railway system was so poorly maintained was something I was curious about. How can we make it efficient? as someone who used public transport. And I was also thinking like, okay, when I was grade 1, it's the same structure of the Leyland bus. And when I was like, still now I'm working, but it's the same pettier sort of box type bus, which is still in. How come? Because the world has moved, like aeroplanes have evolved, the space has evolved, but why our buses were. So I was thinking
You
about
were
it.
thinking about it, yeah.
So with that, I of course read economics and all that. So I had a sense of something, and I associated few people. So with that, I got curiosity, but I wasn't really, familiar with the exact how this exactly
theoretical concepts of it.
concept.
Yeah,
I
sure.
see.
And then I joined Breakthrough Business Intelligence market research company. Dilini, Jayasuriya, and Suresh were very kind enough. I was the first employee. So Dilini had run an excellent operation for a global sort of market research company, and then she started on her own. So I was the first employee, and I did not know nothing about market research. How to do a questionnaire, how to do a discussion guide, and also, so she trained me from scratch. So there, I was very lucky to understand the psyche of the consumer, because in market research, on one day you research about tea, next day formula milk powder, next day education, next day pharmaceutical. So for that 4 to 5 years, I have probably 60-70 industries. I have seen the data, and I have had the first-hand interaction, how people make a decision when they were going to buy something. So I really had that sense.
Just purely consumer research.
Purely consumer research. So I had that sense how someone would thinking about a product, the price, the brand image, how people decode even the communications and all that. Some social research as well.
Right.
So, but mainly it's purely the consumer research. And how advertising work and how strategy being done and all that. And Dilani is an excellent trainer. And also I had to improve my English, because some of these focus group discussions were supposed to conduct in English.
Right.
And some are one-to-one interviews, and some are with very senior people, because when you do stakeholder engagement studies and all that. And she was also completely put me into the deep end, asking me to present and all that. And also she advised me, Dana, everything is good, but you have to improve your English. And she said, now by then I have improved a bit, but there were fundamental issues. So she actually paid on her own money and sent me to another English tuition, a parent of Dilini's good friend, basically to sit and basically use prepositions, those, the basics were basic. So Mrs. Jayasingh trained me on basically doing the comprehensions and all that, on improving English a little bit better. So then I was presenting to clients and boardroom presentations. So both completely came hand in hand. So I got I improved the curiosity, like why it happens, and I got somewhat reasoning also. I knew, okay, this is why it happens. This is the pricing issue. This is the network issue. This is the commission issue, sort of a thing. So
you learned it all by doing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, just exposed yourself, went with it.
Absolutely. That's why I said to begin the question, like how I came for economics. That's why I said I get a lot of criticism because I haven't really studied it in any formal setup. But I think my advantage was, since I learned it on my own, I am also explaining it the way that I learned it on my own. So probably many people, maybe it's easier for them to connect to my story, because I am completely seeing it as a layman's point of view, how it happened.
Right.
Yes.
So as a result, media gave me a lot of visibility, because they ultimately also need to have a proper viewership. Because when economics, when you start with inflation and this table and that graph,
You've lost everyone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But so probably because of that ability to connect with common man, probably gave me some visibility, and that I wanted to do it. I want to make it like simpler and cleaner, and also coming from the market research background and having that advertising exposure, I was, I want to make things as simple as much as possible.
Okay. What made you kind of go into the whole free market aspect of economics? That's not a very common thing in Sri Lanka, right?
Yeah.
Free market. There's a lot of aversion to it.
Yeah.
Where did you kind of go? Sri Lanka needs to open itself up. Sri Lanka needs to plug into global systems, and then you went and tried to push that narrative.
Yeah.
Maybe go into that.
Yeah, so it was mainly through association of whom I associated with. So when we were coming to Advocata, I was associating Razeen Saleh, and I was reading Dr. W.A. Vijayawardana's column. He has an excellent column on Daily FT. Every Monday, a must read. It was, I think he's writing for about more than 10 years now. But he was also explaining things in Sinhala. He was the deputy governor of the central bank. So it provided me a lot of clarity on, I didn't know whether it's free market or, I knew to an extent, but it wasn't
by
like,
definition,
exactly.
by
I was
definition.
trying things on the first principles basis.
Right.
I
First
was
principles.
I was thinking, okay, whether when you apply this, how does this work?
Right.
So that's where my connection comes to it. But of course, then I read about, Keynesian and all that a bit. But of course, the people I associated, probably they were also that, I think probably that influence may also be on me because I read
I see.
most of them. Professor Premachandra Thukorala, Razeen Saleh, Dr. Vijayawardana. So that's where probably I pretty much went on that direction.
They were more capitalist thinkers.
They were more, yes. Even today, I really do not see, it's like, I know there's capitalism, socialism and all that, but I'm still thinking more on the, whether when you do it, how it is going to work sort of a practical sense. But I understand there are
labels,
and all that. But rather than the label, I'm pretty much trying to think on the first principles. How does it work? Even my language thing, I was thinking how someone would absorb a language.
Yeah.
So you need to have the word, how you identify something. So I was pretty much the brick and mortar guy, like, okay,
Right.
this is the scientific way of working, then maybe let's try that
There's
option.
the science mind coming in.
Probably.
You were mentioning first principles, meaning when you look at a problem and work your way backwards from it, right?
Correct.
In a sense.
Correct.
Right.
And when you understand a little bit on the pricing system, because the basic in economics is that, of course, the resources are limited. So it's all about how are you going to distribute these resources.
Trade-offs.
Absolutely. So you have to consider the trade-offs and to see what's the best mechanism that you can distribute the resources. So whether the state is going to come and distribute it, or whether you allow the pricing system to distribute it.
Right.
So I was more convinced the pricing system, of course, it's not a perfect system, but it gives more, it's reasonable than the next alternative available.
Right, which is the government intervention.
Government intervention and trying to do it, the government, okay, there's this number of resources, someone decides you get this portion, you get that portion. But that has a lot of complications. But when you have the pricing, that it doesn't mean that the person who has the money is going to dominate. Of course, that can happen. But the fundamental of a pricing system is you bid based on the intensity of the need that you have.
Right.
For an example, let's say there's only one medicine, one capsule of medicine that can cure severe, let's say, a disease. So the person who has the most intensive level of disease will bid any amount because the value of it depends on the need and the intensity of that need at that particular time.
Sure.
So that was the very simply that I was trying to solve. That was my understanding. So that's where I pretty much coming, on the market side of things. That's where I probably got exposed and thinking, and it was also easier for me to understand and explain. And I got, unless I cannot also explain unless I am convinced with the argument. So.
That makes sense, yeah. So before we go, deeper into this topic, do you mind just quickly, in layman terms, just explaining what exactly is a free market and what kind of implications would that kind of market system have for our country? Maybe in quickly layman terms.
My understanding, it's all about allowing the price system to work. When I say pricing that's where the mechanism that the resources can be distributed. And when I say pricing, we also need to understand it's the relative price. What do I mean by the relative price? For an example, let's say this phone, whether I am going to buy this phone or not is not necessarily a decision of only the price of this phone. it is also it is also a decision of price of this microphone. Because when I'm going to buy something, I'm going to compare the prices of so many other things. Let's say in my need set, I need a phone, I need a microphone, I need a cup of tea, but of course for different purposes. But if I feel, and I know with the money that I have, I can only buy one. So then actually my choice is going to, okay, even I have a dire need to buy the phone, if I bring the price of this one down, if the price of this one up, likely even I have a dire need, I may shift to this because the relative price compared to my need may be different.
Right.
I'll give you a quick example, like real example. Now a lot of governments are giving a subsidy for kerosene. Bhumi tel කියලා කියන්නේ kerosene. But at the refinery level, kerosene is equivalent to, as most people know, it's like jet fuel, right? Because to refine, it's very expensive at the refinery level. So as a result, rather the subsidy or the tax, the government either do not tax kerosene and they tax diesel and petrol. So what has happened? Over a period of time, so probably this may have happened because of our refinery, the amount of kerosene we got was very minimal and it is not adequate to like sell at a grand scale for aeroplanes. So they thought, why are we wasting it? We'll give it to poor people at a subsidized rate.
Right.
Now let's see what has happened because of the relative price. Now the relative price of jet fuel is lower compared to the relative price of diesel. Now people started using actually jet fuel for, if you look at poorest of the poor, they use kerosene for their burners. Like day cooking, they use kerosene. And even the fishermen who goes, they use kerosene. That's why every time when you start increasing kerosene prices, the fishermen are the first. Exactly. But actually, diesel is more efficient and productive than kerosene.
Burn slower.
Exactly. For that purpose. But the relative price have completely made the consumption needs upside down.
Right.
Now we are using jet fuel for cooking. And I mean, it doesn't make any sense because poorest of the poor are using the most expensive type of fuel for a basic need where there are so many alternative options, cheap options that could have been there for cooking and the fishing.
Right.
And as a result, it affects the protein market because now when you fish, the multi-day trawlers are the most productive way because you go to the waters and your catchment is quite high. So compared to 1 unit of input, your output is much larger. Now since your kerosene prices are lower, they are not using kerosene, they are moving to, rather than the multi-day trawlers, they are going for like smaller version of boats.
Interesting. Okay.
Wow.
You get what I'm saying?
I get what you're saying. Absolutely. Yeah.
So as a result, that relative prices completely
distorted the whole
ecosystem.
thing.
It's a domino effect of
Absolutely.
that. Yeah.
And if you look at private buses, that's why they say that they pump, if they pump 20 liters of diesel, they also pump 1 liter of kerosene just to get that acceleration because it's jet fuel.
Right.
So buses going as jets by getting the jet fuel because it's subsidized.
Okay.
Or like it hasn't taxed at the same level.
Right.
So as a result, we have completely distorted the market. So like my phone example, because of since I moved the prices upside down by subsidy or not taxing, now my need for a diesel has gone somewhere else and I moved to a different product.
Right.
Which has an knock-on impact. So answering your question, it's the market system is allowing the price system to work. And when you allow the price system to work, then people basically, the resources are resources are distributed in a justifiable way,
Right.
rather than someone picking the winners and the losers.
Right. Well, in this case, the government distorted it because they subsidized kerosene.
Yeah.
Yes. But then the other side of the argument is, if you just let the free market to itself, then you have a very, very big significant gap.
Correct.
So wouldn't, in this case, the kerosene, the people, yes, might not use kerosene in this way, but now a bunch of people will not even have access to basic
Correct.
cooking stuff.
Yeah.
So how do you kind of balance that out?
Absolutely.
Because that's the criticism of free
No,
market,
no,
right?
absolutely. So that's where the social safety net comes into play. Because on any market system, social safety net is very, very important and pretty much mandatory. You cannot allow everything, because not everyone starts the race at the same point.
Yeah.
Because you can do it if you are getting a blank sheet. Because you are already getting into a very complicated system. So there, the social safety net has to support basically the people who are underprivileged. So that's the way that you do it. But what we advise is not to do it through prices. Now, let's say if you keep the diesel prices and the kerosene, you allow based on the cost. So if you really allow the prices to move based on the refinery level, jet fuel would be the highest,
Very expensive.
very expensive, then probably petrol and diesel.
Okay.
So likely the poorest of the poor will shift to diesel.
Yeah.
But they may not have resources to buy diesel.
Right.
So that has to be subsidized through the social safety net.
Yep.
But what happens if you try to, because poor people cannot buy diesel, you give a subsidy and let's say you bring the prices of diesel down. Then what would happen? Then people who are driving BMWs and Mercedes,
They're going for it.
they will consume more,
Yeah.
because now it's a bonus for them.
Yeah.
Because in terms of consumption, a poorest person number of liters that they consume for a month, probably the richest of the rich will consume it for a
few days.
for an hour.
Right.
And that's exactly what happened during the crisis.
It was that blanket subsidy that you're totally against.
Absolutely, because that's why even if you go to, no offense to the Colombo schools, most of them are keeping their engines up till the kid is coming out from school, because we subsidize diesel to everybody. So as you know, the richest of the rich, their consumption is quite high.
Yeah.
So for them, they are the ones who are driving V8s and Mercedes and all that. So their probably engine efficiency is like what, 8 to 10 kilometers per liter. But the poor man's motorcycle, he runs about
25,
25, 30.
Yeah, sure.
So by subsidizing 1 liter of diesel, actually your subsidy goes most to the richest of the rich, because they are consuming, for go 1 kilometer,
Yeah.
to go 8 kilometers, they consume 1.
Right.
But the poorest of the poor, he consumes 1 liter to go to 30 kilometers.
Yeah.
So then when you give a subsidy per liter, basically you are channeling the subsidy for the richest of the rich. And that's why actually they had a good time.
Right.
Because your subsidies were completely directed towards for the people who had a lot of, resources and money. And that's why you have to, if you want to really take care of
Yeah.
the underprivileged, it has to come as a cash subsidy.
A direct cash subsidy.
A direct cash subsidy. Because also why we don't recommend to do it in material is people's choices are different. I mean,
Yeah,
if you need to, if you are in hunger, when you give like red rice, they may not eat red rice. They may prefer maybe bread or samba or something. So you should have that person the choice
Yeah.
what to buy. Not that you think red
they
rice is good, then you give it. So that's why the role of prices comes. So you don't distort the price. You keep the prices as a reflection of the scarcity of the resource.
Right.
Because of kerosene is scarce, of course the prices will be higher compared to diesel, because it's difficult to extract. but you don't distort it with the prices. So then the resources will, so the people only who need the most efficient form of fuel will only pay a premium and buy kerosene. Same way for the other markets.
Right.
Was it explained?
No, that was a great
That was great,
explanation,
yeah.
actually. I might copy that from my class. That was a good one. So, but Sri Lanka in general is a very high social welfare state in general. Like most of our spending is for social welfare. So how do you, deal with that if you are for free markets? Because regardless, if you have a large social welfare state, you are going to end up distorting the market, even if you kind of have targeted cash subsidies, right?
Yeah.
So,
So what basically my view is, there are some spending that the government anyway has to do. And what you need to do is keep the size of the government, rather than saying free markets, you try to keep the size of the government limited.
Yeah.
Because there is a role for the government, no two words about it. Because there are certain public goods that only the government can basically
absolutely.
produce. And at the same time, there can be market failures as well.
but could you, such as what? What kind of goods would the government be able to produce other than security and empowerment?
Absolutely. So, for an example, it's still possible, but I'm saying, for an example, rule of law.
Right.
That's something the government should basically step in. Of course, there are other ways that a market system can deliver it to an extent, even the security, national security, government, but of course, there are private security that you can also get.
Sure.
Definitely, there are options. But in the socio-economic context, those are the things that the government should step in. For an example, as we record the disaster, the natural disasters and the alert system, because probably a private sector guy may not have an incentive to invest on it at the beginning.
A public welfare kind of incentive. Yeah,
Absolutely. So that's why actually the government takes a cut or as a tax from all of us, because not government investment that is also collected from the private individuals. So they basically collect it, but they invest on collective issues that an individual may not have the depth or the deep pockets to invest together. So that's where the government role comes in. So definitely there's a role for the government. No two words about it. And the problem in Sri Lanka is, for your question, we are basically the government investing on the wrong things rather than on the things that they should have invested. So for an example, education, healthcare, they can invest. We have of course the private players has to be allowed, but if you really want to play a role, not perfect, but still I recommend, for better reasons, you invest. That's not a problem. But the problem is most of our expenditure is on, as we speak now, on the interest. That is for the
interest on debt.
Interest on debt.
Yeah.
More than 50% is on the interest on debt. So for that, basically, what you spend on all unnecessary doing businesses by the government, that they're running, what do you call, grocery shops. They do all sorts of businesses and then make losses, and then you borrow money, and then now you are paying the interest. So that is the challenge. So definitely you have to have a limited government, but if you really want, you can. There's nothing wrong in spending on social safety net and things that the private individuals are not willing to invest, or if there's a market failure, should. But the challenge is, some people say, I am not anyway saying that the markets are perfect and it has never failed. It can fail. But the problem is, the cost of a government failure is much significant than a market failure.
Right. Okay.
And we experienced that in 2022. When the government is not functioning and the failure of the government, you could not do anything, right? But it doesn't mean that the government should do everything.
Yeah.
By trying to do everything, you are paving your way for failure for sure. So you should do a limited thing and allow others to do. Even if there's a market failure, then you can intervene and maybe re-establish it. But never ever government should do and intervene markets, but they have a limited role on rule of law.
Okay. So basically, we have arguments about this all the time. For me, the government is nothing but a regulator.
Correct.
I'm not sure, I understand we have 527 SOEs, right? I think these are stats from Advocata. 500,000 direct state workers. This is minus police, military, and so on and so forth. So, and they're all making losses pretty much. And the only ones making a profit are People's Bank and BOC, which is, I find that hilarious that the creditor is the one making the profit. And
Absolutely.
that's really strange, right? So that how did this even start? How did we come to such a bloated state? I'm really confused on this.
Yeah. So what happened was, as I mentioned, at the initial stages, there were certain sectors, there were no private investors to invest. For an example, even the hotel industry.
Okay.
The cinnamon grant that we speak about was a real government-owned one. Because at that time, because tourism wasn't developed, so no private investor believed in a sort of a hotel concept. So then the government, because since the government had deep pockets, because they can easily collect money from as taxes and they can put the investment. So as a result, that's where in any part of the world, that's how the government slowly get into the business. But after one point, there is no reason why the government should constantly invest that money, because there are enough private players who can do it. But what happened in Sri Lanka was, we really did not willing to let that go. We stayed, and instead we basically jumped into more and more businesses. That's one.
Was that because they thought it was being successful, or because they thought this is a great opportunity to steal?
Absolutely. So over a period of time, these became vehicles for corruption.
Yeah.
And then how it gotten to about 500 was, now to set up an SOE, sometimes it comes through the parliament, but then what happened was, they were setting it up as subsidiaries and sub-subsidiaries, which really didn't require parliament approval. For an example, if the government is going to newly set up a company, probably it has to come under parliament. For an example, let's say electricity, CEB was an act of parliament.
Okay.
But now once you set up CEB can also set up, without the parliamentary approval, another company as a private limited company where CEB owns the entire share, just to purchase coal. Do you get what I'm saying?
So the SOE would set up a private limited company, but that SOE is the one who owns the shares of the private company.
And absolutely. And
so they do uncompetitive bids.
Absolutely. So then it's easier for me to buy coal from this company through my suppliers, and that coal company can set up another company as a subsidiary to purchase, maybe for coal transport, some transport company or something. And that's why if you look at BOC, they have a travel agent company, they have a leasing company. So likewise, they all were trying to expand. So as a result, this has completely gone beyond control. But some of those, out of that 527, some are actually like even booths. For example, Javadanapura Hospital is also coming as a SOE, because they have paid boards and all that. But interestingly, there are certain commercial operation which is not in this list, because those are departments. Classic example, railway. It's actually a commercial operation, providing transport services, but it's not coming under state-owned enterprises because it's the railway department. Same with postal. It's actually a business operation. But since it's as a department, it doesn't come under state-owned enterprises.
But legally, is there any real difference in the way they operate? No.
Not really. It's just basically they can easily get the budget line from the ministry. Because for education ministry, it's not it's not a commercial, there are commercial, maybe minor activities, but it's basically a direct channel from taxpayer money to that particular ministry that they expend. That's perfectly fine. What we avoid should be the government intervening and doing business, because that's where corruption, and also on the competitive nature, because by doing it, basically you're blocking entrepreneurs. I can also give you a classic example. Now, for an example, in Sri Lanka, there were, I think still there are, but earlier there was a helicopter service. Private individual.
I believe there is still one.
There is still. But look at the cost structure of a helicopter. Like, let's say 3 of us is going to start. Let's get Captain Elmo also. we'll start a helicopter service, right? And how are we going to, we have to buy helicopters. For that, definitely we have to go to a bank and ask for credit facilities.
Yeah.
And then we have to hire pilots. We have to have fuel supply.
Yeah.
We have to have space to park helicopters, whatever the licenses, all that, right? And a lot of investment, interest has to be paid. But the Air Force do the same operation. Their pilots are taxpayer paid. Probably they get fuel on a credit basis from Ceylon Petroleum Corporation, right? And they have parking at probably at the where they can utilize the Air Force. So now both of us, we are young entrepreneurs. We are going to start a helicopter business. Government is also there. Now, of course, their pricing is going to be, probably 50% less than us.
Sure.
So we are going out of business.
Yep.
But look at in terms of profits. Now, when we make a profit, we have to give 30% to the government
Yep.
of the profit.
Yep.
Probably if we are exceeding the VAT threshold, we have to do 18% on value addition. And also, if the pilots are earning more than 150 rupees, they have to pay from their salary a tax. But there's nothing. Now, you have a helicopter service which is run by Air Force. No offense to that. Of course, for emergency disaster management, definitely they have to execute. But when you run a commercial one,
Yep.
and now who is getting the benefit? Helicopters are being used by these common people. Siripala Ayya, Sirimalla Ayya, are they using the helicopter?
Yeah.
They hardly go. And even the bus and the train is a difficult
Yeah.
thing for them.
Yeah, yeah.
So now we are giving a subsidy for people who can really afford that by using taxpayer money.
Right.
So that's where the distortion comes in. And that's why I said when state starts doing businesses, you are basically on one side, you are losing money. You are opening, you are opening a can of worms, because then also you are losing out revenue and you are discouraging young entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
And that has been the case every time when you see state mainly start doing business, but there may be certain cases, exceptions, but better avoid that.
And this is a classic case of state capture, right? Do you see it going anywhere? Advocata advocates very, very deeply for privatization and, economic empowerment. So do you see that going in the right direction now?
I think at the moment it's pretty much on a standstill as I see, because the process was there was some privatization was proposed some time ago. It has coming for a long time, but nothing has happened except we saw some privatization of Sri Lanka Telecom at 1990s. And there was some privatization has happened, but afterwards there was nothing much being done afterwards. Then there was this concept with the IMF agreement that we will set up a holding company, that all the state-owned enterprises will come under one company. The current problem is all the state-owned enterprises are at the line ministry.
Right.
For an example, education ministry has a ministerial function, example, and they can also run a business separately.
Yeah.
That's how it happens. On aviation, there's a aviation ministry, but of course there's companies also under aviation. So basically the minister appoints the board of directors,
Right.
for that SOE, this and that.
What could go wrong?
Anything can go wrong. I think we have gotten it completely wrong, right? The financial says it all. So, but the concept is now you are basically removing it from the line ministry and you bring it under one holding company. And that holding, that's like the John Keel's holdings. So holding company has a board of directors and it's their responsibility to look at all the sectors. So as a holding company, like John Keel's is in leisure, they are in transport, they are in
God knows
shipping,
what else.
exactly. So likewise, this is the government sort of holding company. Okay, they are in retail, they are in, but a holding company is responsible for making these enterprises profitable, which is not a perfect solution, but maybe better than the current structure.
situation.
So which is in a way you can consider, but the challenges remains the same to an extent, because if the state again start getting easy credit and all that, it can happen. But countries like Singapore, again we have to understand Singapore, their political structure, their maturity level of governance is completely different. So they run it completely as a private company. Government really doesn't intervene. But there were still cases. I think the Temasek model, that chairman was Singapore Prime Minister's wife, even in that case. Probably she may not have intervened, but of course she's qualified, studied at Harvard or something. So that's a different story. But still, in a, I would say, not very much matured democracy like Sri Lanka, it still can intervene, but definitely better than this line ministry business, because then the minister appoints someone, of course they are friends, and then they do businesses, they give it to their known people, uncompetitive bidding and political campaign, they do butt packets to their political rally. That's how it basically runs the system.
Right. Because you feel like that holding company would kind of fix that kind of situation to an extent, because it seems like an escape pod for them to get more credit and just start the whole process again.
That's the same sentiment that I have, but I mean also the public policy is a evolutionary process.
Okay.
I mean, sometimes you have to give that time to evolve. It's not like a very straightforward. While as young people, while we really want to stand for change and do changes, but sometimes it takes a little bit of time. So and also public policy is also what is possible for that time period.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think in this moment, better than what it can be as rather running as a line ministry. So at least do this. And from there, probably not to move backwards. But I agree with your point. Sometimes you create something and then you are getting trapped there without being able to move either direction.
Right.
So we should avoid that.
Is that where we are currently at though?
To an extent, yes. Because we did not do anything, I mean, as a full package. Everything, it was half-baked solution. So
how do we come out of this, in your opinion, if you were to practically take the necessary steps? What's the first step?
Yeah, that's a good question and a very complicated one. The challenge is, now a lot of people think, okay, I'll do one thing at a time, even in our management theory also, that's how we have trained. You study one subject at a time, right? Specializing. But this is a different game, because if you try to do one thing at a time, probably the one thing that you do may backfire. I'll give you an example. For an example, okay, now we say we want to do privatization of state-owned enterprises. And we go and do privatization. Let's say for an example, but for these privatizations, you have to attract an investor.
Yes.
Because for an example, you cannot just outright say you can sell it, but you have to have an investor who should come and basically invest that money and basically run it as a commercial enterprise, and who has an interest on that business. If it's, for an example, if it's an airline, we should be able to attract an airline partner, because that's good for the business. Because they know the business, they know to bring the know-how, and also it's good for the existing employees. That's how it happened when we did the telecom privatization, I mean half privatization, because we attracted an investor who knew the business. So as a result, most of these telecom employees who actually resisted that privatization, by then they got much better salaries, because their salaries were benchmarked with the global standards of that company.
Right.
So, but the problem is when you go to attract the investor, your investment regulation is very poor. Then let's say you do the privatization half-baked, investor leaves halfway through the process. And then people will question, okay, now you advocated for privatization, look what has happened.
Yeah. Interesting.
Same thing. And when the investor comes, okay, he needs people to recruit. Let's say, of course, let's say the airline example, he needs a top-notch CEO who really have, the dynamics and understand the market, who really can compete with global airlines and all that. But when you try to recruit him, your labor regulations are not feasible to recruit him. You cannot you can recruit, but the process is very difficult to recruit a foreigner in an airline. Can do, but let's say it's difficult. Then you have to think about the labor regulation as well. Then you have, let's say you bring an investor, probably he wants to repatriate money, because you make a profit and okay, you can invest, but of course you need to invest in other parts of the world, and then you have other. So by trying to do it piecewise, probably it can get backfire. So starting point, I would say go for radical reform. You have to basically take most of the pressing issues and do it at the same time simultaneously. For two reasons. One is that's the complication, because we do it, the political backlash will also be there. So first, I would recommend you to start with the trade reforms, because we have to export, we have to improve our exports, we have to do custom reforms. So start with that. That's number one.
Yeah.
Then do privatizations. Then do labor reforms, because we have massive shortages of labor and we have an aging population.
Yeah.
And also the dependency ratio is going up. So as a result, so you have to look at all those aspects, and the land reform, because we really do not have land. As a joke I say, even if you somehow convince Elon Musk to come here and invest, he comes, no land. I mean, there is land, but
Doesn't the government own most of the land?
Government, that's the problem. Government owns most of the land, and we have industrial zones, because investor doesn't come, going around the road and check like, okay, this land is good, and let's, come and like clean the land, and you don't do that. No, there's a proper process. The electricity is there, water is there, waste management is there. It's a plug and play.
Yeah.
But on industrial zones, about 95% of our industrial zones are already occupied.
Okay.
And ideally the industrial zones has to be located with a greater connectivity to the port.
Yeah.
Mainly what is in Western province are pretty much about 95-98% occupied. What is available in Erravur and all that, but still it's very difficult. Maybe some plants can be there which are not logistically which really doesn't need to have that faster connectivity.
Right.
But the government has to work on identifying the land, clearing it up, and developing it. So those issues has to be done. Keeping the, let's say, keep the investment land aside, even for poor people. Not many people aware, as you very correctly said, 85% of the land is owned by the government. And what we have is a deed, not a title. Now there's a big difference between a deed and a title. Deed is, Shanil, imagine you and I come to a contract. Let's say I sell this phone to you, you buy it. So there's a contract. I say I give a, let's say, 6 months warranty. That contract be registered in a register in a chronological order.
Okay.
So that registry is the deed.
Okay, that entire registry is the deed.
Exactly.
Sure.
So that's where people, like, when you're having a deed that you have, like, this was coming from this person to that person, he sold it and all that. And when you go to the bank, that's why they check like that order for like 30 years or 40 years to ensure that this land is actually owned by you.
Right.
Because it's a deed. But title is like a receipt of this phone with a warranty card.
Okay.
I am 100% sure there's a serial number. I can verify it's the same number. It's a phone. You bought it. And then it's easier. Because then with that receipt, you can use it as a collateral easier. You say, okay, I own this phone. You keep this. You give me some money. Or like if I leave this phone, you give me some money. There's no dispute because you know exactly this phone is owned by this person.
Right. It's traceable.
It's traceable. And for poor people, it's mainly the deed that they have. So as a result, we have spoken to bankers. If you try to get a housing loan, first thing that they check is the ownership of the land. And that's also cumbersome to the bank because they have to send their lawyer to that land registry office and actually check whether this land is owned by this person. And there's a mafia going on in Colombo. Not many people are aware, some are aware, that there's a group of people actually who capture the land. Through what you need is, imagine this piece of land, what I only need is a lawyer and few people. I go and do we call it a horoppu, a false document and register, right? What is the cost for me if I am a lawyer and all of that? Pretty much nothing, right?
But that's fraud, isn't
That's
it?
fraud, absolutely it's fraud. But then what happened? Because if you go to the court system to resolve a land issue, you're lucky
You're
if you
done.
get
Sure.
it done in 20 years.
Yeah.
So there will be a point for you actually thinking whether I'm going to resolve it by paying this person some money.
Right. This is extortion, isn't it?
Yeah.
Absolutely, this is extortion and that it is happening and not many people believe. One of our embassies got into trouble and there was a diplomatic mission that has to be done to rescue that land because someone went and did a fraud deed and claimed the ownership of that foreign embassy's building. And it happens in Colombo because these are very highly valuable properties. And I mean, at one point, so that's the problem. That's what I said. Like you have to fix a lot of things if the youth really want to see a prosperous Sri Lanka. And it's quite tough. But I think the answer is where to start. Probably with all of these. but keeping the social safety net in mind. I don't underestimate that. While you do it, you bring the social safety net up, because definitely with policy reforms, there will be losers.
Yeah. Yeah.
No two words about it. You should not create a rosy picture. There will be losers, because already there are people who have been benefiting from the existing system,
Yeah.
so they are going to lose out.
Yeah, of course.
So especially when the poorest of the poor, you have to have a social safety net.
Interesting.
Am I talking too
No,
long?
no. This is
No, not at all.
perfect. This is
Not at all,
perfect.
not at all.
This is a great discussion, because I didn't know that. So you're basically using first principles thinking in this regard also, and that land reform is the first step, really, right? Towards
Absolutely. And look at what has happened in North and East. Like a lot of people have left for political reasons during the wartime. And now they don't know. I mean, things have changed a lot. Probably they are mostly foreign citizens. They really cannot own the land. They don't know. And probably they have the money. They have the network. And a lot of Sri Lankans who are in overseas, they are doing quite well. And we have to be happy
absolutely.
about it.
Yeah.
But even if they, especially when people leave for political reasons, it's hard. I mean, they are not willing to come back, because the memory is quite unpleasant. But
Yeah.
still, probably they are second generation or third generation, they may not have the same thing. They may really want to come back and contribute and all that. I think we can see some of it happening, but we can attract more if we really have that, if we can really clear that. But the process is very slow. There was a process, there was a torrent system that was running called BIMSAVIA, which has a lot of issues, but at least that's a reasonable system that we have at the moment. But there has to be a proper land management system. I'm sure the young guys who watch this probably know through satellite system that actually you can do a lot of mapping, and even the height of the building, and it's easier to capture. Even in an emergency, you know where who are located, and a lot of things can be done with new technology, and it's not also not taking too long. Now the BIMSAVIA program that is coming for probably about 3 decades. And they have only done, there are about 16 million land plots. They have, for the 30 years, they have done about 1 million. So at the rate, it will take another 300 years to complete under that program. So definitely we have to accelerate.
Well, I was watching this thing, I think the Port City Commission recently, someone was asking them, so all these plots of land that you're trying to lease out, when's the timeline? And they did not have a timeline. So the fact that they don't have a timeline to even do this kind of tells me that they don't want to do it in that sense.
Maybe because, again, like the SOEs are vehicles for corruption, when you're a minister, one privilege that you get is the access for these lands. And then you do a, fraud deed and all that, and somehow you capture some of those valuable land. That's why all the river fronts or valuable land probably was taken as to do a restaurant and all that. And that's also a good way. I'm not giving any advice, but also to for money laundering, because some of those restaurants and all that, it's cash business, so then it's easy. So to make their passive, to develop the channels which are passive income for their retirement, that's what has been going on. That's what I'm saying. The pricing mechanism, if you allow, the poorest of the poor will get the most benefit, because now it's elite capture, and they're capturing it through daylight state intervention. Right? Because when you have power, they are not going to cut the cake
nice and equal.
Exactly. They are going to cut it for their advantage. And the only way that we can give it a try is through the pricing mechanism and making sure that no one distorts that.
So why do you think that we're so averse to this whole system that you're advocating? Because most Sri Lankans are very averse to anything free market.
Correct. So I think it's also the propaganda of the preaching of the same thing over and over again. And also probably more than that, I would say it's not understanding it on the first principles basis. Because for many people, free market is like, okay, you allow the richest person to grab everything.
That's what they see,
very
right, with
taboo.
like the US and the Western world.
And also the markets being basically defined by people who do not know about markets. Because then, if I were to define you without knowing you, it's easier for me to say something completely, distorted. So as a result, and also our economic education is, it wasn't taught Well, for an example, ideally, economics is like, biology, like the photosynthesis. Everyone should know what is actually happening. I mean,
Yeah.
you should not be an economist to understand that plants absorb carbon
Right, yeah.
dioxide and give oxygen. So likewise, economics is a way of thinking for any subject. Resources are limited. How you basically maximize the resource utilization. That fundamental has to be across everything. So that is not being taught very well, and a lot of people think economics is an art subject. There is nothing wrong with art subject, but economics has a lot of mathematics.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a STEM subject.
Sure.
But mathematics, even at the university level, being poorly taught, so they really do not know to do the math side of it. So they completely think this is like, only like a theoretical thing without really understanding the depth of it. So
I
that's
do think that people are in silos when they learn a certain thing, right?
absolutely.
The transdisciplinary
That is
connections
not
not
there.
there.
Absolutely. So as a result, you really only see one side of things.
Right.
Not, and that's why even we went for a massive crisis, because you thought it's the way that things would work, but
Yeah.
that is not how
It
you
works,
know.
yeah. So before we kind of move on, I have you seen the Argentinian president who, like the recent with the
Yeah, yeah.
chainsaw,
Correct,
and he's
correct,
gone on a
correct.
boat and he went Department of X gone, Department of Y
Yeah.
gone, because he
Correct.
was very against the bloated state.
Correct.
I mean, people thought he's a madman, but I don't know if you've seen it, but if you kind of look into it, he's won his midterms by an even bigger landslide.
Correct.
And the economy has done well.
Correct.
Albeit they got debt relief from the US.
Correct.
But do you feel like that's even somewhat plausible? Because as young people, I want it to happen now. I don't want to wait 20 years. I want it to happen now.
100%. Fair enough. No, I think there's a lot of learnings from Argentina. There are also, I think there are two sides. I have listened to someone from Argentina. I think there's also, it was said that he has appointed, there's some level of corruption that
Of
has
course,
also
of course.
has come in. That's a separate story. If without that, I think the principles, on the first principles thinking, what he's doing is right. And you can see the results, obviously. But there's a lot to be done. And also we need to understand these reforms is a continuous process. You just do it and then you can't stop it. Like it's
Right.
a constant thing that you need to evolve and do it multiple times based on the context and dynamics. So that's where we need to, head towards.
Okay. So it's not wrong of me to want that.
No. No, I think, no, you're absolutely right, because that's why I said someone has to come and do it. I mean, everything parallelly, because if you take a slow approach, the problem is going to come and kill you. And that's exactly what is happening every time.
Some trade union comes and just says, no.
Absolutely, you have to go, because if the government starts reacting to whatever happening, that's not the way. You have to make the move for others to react. And you move.
Yeah.
So then others basically align with that.
Right.
Otherwise, when you take, okay, I'll do this, do that. Of course, it has to be properly consulted, properly analyzed, all that. But every pillar has to move simultaneously, because then it's also easy to adjust. Because otherwise you do this and then things have changed here and then you try to move it, then it affects this pillar. You move everything together.
Were you always kind of this free market thinker, or did you ever move from a different kind of mentality to this? Were you always like this?
When I was schooling, I was
Were you a
100%.
communist?
I was kind of, not to that extent, but I was like, why not? I
Yeah.
mean, the state should do it, and all that things. I had that thinking at one point.
Because
but
you said you had a very nationalistic kind of
absolutely
nurturing.
correct.
Right.
So of course, I believed in it at one point. And maybe there will be some what you call residual impact maybe still remains within me, because I'm also a human, but not necessarily now. But I mean, of course, I was believing in state doing certain things and how handouts and all that. And also it's an interesting thing. But Razin Sali told me when Advocata was formed, he said, look, you are getting into a long haul game. The policy reforms and because the reason why I wanted to join Advocata, or join in the sense like, become one of the founders, and because I saw if we were able to do that reform, that's the best way to help people. And you are helping a person that you don't know. For example, if you try to fix to an extent land issue, you are basically giving a relief of, millions of people.
Right.
who
There's a
are-
trickle effect.
It's a trickle effect.
Of course.
And Razin said it's a long haul game. But at the same time, people are more, we would like to do sort of charity work because it's instant gratification. You see
Yeah.
the result. So he said you keep a balance. Since you are anyway volunteer for Candlelight, you can see, you help people, you see how people progress first hand basis, but also you stay on the long game, because also the policy reform cannot be done alone. The land issue, you can never ever come and say, okay, Advocata did everything. We can only contribute to just a minor piece. There has to be other stakeholders, everyone needs to come and help. So you're contributing as a society for a broader transformation. You can play a key role, but by doing that, you are bringing millions of people out of poverty in one shot. But that takes
that one policy move.
Absolutely. So it is sometimes, it is better than sometimes you try to giving away a lot of things and uplifting, but I think that there's a human part to it, and definitely I believe in it. That's why I volunteer for Candlelight and for many other organizations. But you have, I think, see both sides. And invest some time, because it's not easy, because it's easier to do the short game and move.
It's easy to see things in black and white. Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's actually, so since you're on this, like one topic I wanted to bring up with you was like a great example of what you just mentioned of the trickle down effect is the work Advocata did for menstrual hygiene and the tariffs on that. So for those who don't know, Sri Lanka has a combined, correct me if I'm wrong, combined tax of about 101% on all imported sanitary napkins and menstrual hygiene products, right? So you guys were advocating to completely get rid of the para-tariffs and the duties on that. And from what I understand, the government agreed to repeal some of the duties to 52%, but had kept all other tariffs, including the para-tariffs. I personally, Dhananath, do not understand how this is even possible. How could that even be possible? Because now this could trickle down into female labor force participation if this was completely removed, the taxes. So what was the argument the government was giving you at the time to keep such heavy taxes? And I think only 30% of women have access to this.
Yeah. Another interesting story. How we really did not know the tariffs were this high at the beginning. How this triggered to us, how this shocked us. There was a time, I think it's in 2016-17, there was a protest by female inmates at the Valley prison requesting for sanitary pads, because during their menstruation they were only given one sanitary pad.
That's crazy.
Absolutely. So we thought there has to be something wrong, like how come? And then we looked at the tariff rates for sanitary pads. Then we realized it was 101%.
That's insane.
That's insane. And we only got to know because of female inmates had to climb to the roof asking for more sanitary pads during their menstruation. And then we looked at, we realized, okay, there's a massive issue, not only on sanitary pads, there's a lot of on menstrual hygiene products. Some are not even coming to the market. There's a cultural issue as well. Some women really do not want to use it. They are not willing to, how shall I say, embrace the advanced sort of products or tampons or things like that.
Okay.
Of course, high tariffs are also there, and the menstrual sanitary pad penetration was also low. And the reason was, and also, I mean, how much are you going to collect from taxing 101%?
Well, yeah, this
I mean,
doesn't make any sense.
are you going to collect like billions? Not really, right? And the important thing is not many people understand, because what you do is actually this tariff at 101% is not a tariff to, it's basically a wall to block a product.
Yeah.
Because when you have 101%, no one is going to bring it down.
Yeah,
so
sure.
basically, you are not earning a revenue.
Yeah.
We should not fool ourselves thinking, okay, 101%, we are getting a revenue which is being distributed for us or something. It's not happening.
Fantasy economics.
Exactly. So product is not coming to the market at all. Because there were some, I think, players, local players that who needed a protection that they really cannot compete with the global brands. So as a result,
was that the justification that they wanted to protect the local players?
That was one of the justifications.
Wow.
And also the revenue argument. But then we had a fair we had a fair argument. We said, okay, fine. Because ultimately the local manufacturers are also importing their raw materials now.
Yeah.
So we said even you bring that down because then the local manufacturers can also compete. I think there were some amendments, it was brought down to about 50%, but what happened was the impact was after one point because the currency depreciated. So then the real impact felt for people wasn't great, but you were absolutely right because now things like the diapers, sanitary pads, things like that really helps the female labor force participation. And not many people know. For an example, let's take a normal kitchen. The kitchen appliances are heavily taxed.
Okay.
Fridge, four burner cooker. Probably most of the households really do not have a dishwasher.
Right.
Pantry cupboards are very expensive. So this ultimately all adds to someone to consider to joining the labor force.
Yeah.
So that's why there was a time like what a lot of Sri Lankans who work overseas in Qatar and Kuwait as housemates, what are they buying at the airport at the duty free shop? It's the washing machine, fridge, probably a TV. I mean, have you seen in any other country like selling TVs and fridges at the
At duty free. Yeah,
Maybe
that's
there
a
may
good
be
point.
right? But so that's a. I mean, why we should not allow it for the poorest of the poor? I mean, how many are going overseas? I mean, that's also. But now the contexts have changed. But the point is, when you have those tariffs, it basically dilutes or bring your living standard absolutely down. And not many people are aware, especially the youngsters. They have two dreams now: buy a vehicle, probably build a house, buy a vehicle. Both are very difficult because of the taxes. Because cost of construction, that's another fight that we have, is very expensive. It's higher than about 40% than the region. Like cement, wall tiles, floor tiles, bathware are tariffed at like 100%.
But all of this is a result of protectionist policies, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So as a result, a young person who is going to build a house, look at his cost impact. He's going to build a house. Now he's paying probably about 100% or 80 to 100% higher the price than your sister who lives or sister or brother who lives in Thailand or Australia. And to do that, you have to also take a bank loan. So the bank loan you have to pay probably about what, like 10 to 14% interest. So for something that you never consumed, you pay a 14% interest. And your regulatory cost on getting the loan because your land is, you don't have the title and all that, adds up a lot. So then that's one reason I think a lot of, I don't know, during my time, our mentors were advised to get a job in a banking sector. Because you get like, low interest loans.
Low perks.
Exactly, more perks and all that. And then when you go to buy a vehicle, which is about 150% to 250% tax.
Yep.
So basically your 25 to 55 is gone. Because by the time you pay the house, settle the housing loan, and when you settle the vehicle loan, 5 years now. So basically 2 of that, your basically game is over. So that's where the frustration comes on, and that's why I think why Sri Lanka, you said I want to see everything done, like I can't wait for 20 years, because that's the aspiration of the Sri Lankans. They want to have a better life, they want to build the house, they wanted to see others, because don't forget the ripple impact. Because probably if you had that money in hand, let's say your housing cost comes like 40% down, you're not going to keep that money under your mattress, no? Probably you will donate some of it to Captain Elmo, help someone. Probably you will think of your higher education. Maybe you will travel a bit more. Maybe you will raise, you give something, you do something, or you'll do a startup. So you create, but now you can do nothing. All your money is like sunk cost. You haven't even seen it, and it's gone.
Yeah, like a cycle of debt.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, that kind of brings me to the whole point of startups, actually. Because if you want economic growth, any country you look at, they've created an environment for startups and businesses, ease of doing business, blah, blah, blah. My understanding here is, as you were mentioning, Dhananath, if you want to start something, you have to go to a bank. Bank, sir, please, let me put my house up that I've not even completely built up as collateral. and give me a loan, let me start this, and then they charge like 10% interest. It's ridiculous, right? So uh, that is the most dominant way for businesses to start here. There's no investor equity model system going on here. I know that the government has started a investor kind of a startup fund as of recently. I don't know the details. Maybe you could get into that. But do you see Sri Lanka creating an environment where we can create a kind of a VC environment?
Yeah, I think definitely we should. But the problem is, even the startup community, in my view, not everyone, I think they are also looking at this is a problem as a capital issue, like capital in the sense like they think the limited access to capital is what's restricting me from starting the business. Definitely there's a side for that, no two words about it. But as you know, when you're doing the startup, it's not only the capital. There are so many other factors that's stopping you.
Absolutely.
Right? So government is also mainly thinking, okay, let's do a development bank, let's give collateral free loan and all that, which is all good. I mean, I'm also for let's do a credit score and let's not go behind this collateral. All that is true. But as a business, as a startup, what you need to think is how to bring your cost factors down. Your cost factors are beyond your capital cost.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cost of construction. For an example, I was at a retailer's pretty much the Sri Lankan apparel manufacturers association. So they basically what they said was, okay, we don't have easy cash access is very limited. Government is not supporting us, all that. So I asked, okay, where's your cost factors? Okay, they have to do of course, to sell, they have to have an outlet. Okay, if I try to build the outlet, what's your cost factors? Of course, your steel, your volatile, everything is expensive. On top of it, your labor cost is also expensive, and your electricity is expensive. So you're trying to use, if you have cash, you can do more and more outlets. But you're doing more and more outlets at a very unproductive cost structure.
Right.
Same with labor. For an example, the absence of a proper public transport system. Because of that, your employees are demotivated. Because, okay, if your retail shop is open till at about like 9:30, 10, you have to probably take a tuk or a cab to go home. I mean, your costs are complete, and then definitely it is going to reflect on your salary demand, because someone has need to make a reasonable salary. So as a result, your cost factors are very high. It doesn't mean you should not have cash, and government has started something on your question. Pretty much, I mean, they're trying to absorb some of the risk. So what they have done is they have started with Asian Development Bank's funding and the treasury's funding. So they have a fund. So when someone comes to take a loan, and there are categories and all that, so they absorb some of the risk of the loan. Like if you ask for like 25 million, probably they will absorb about 80% of that risk in case if you default, that they can settle. But the balance interest that you can pay. The danger of having that, I have seen it to my first-hand experience. The former finance minister Mangala Samaraweera also started something like that called Enterprise Sri Lanka. I think all are excellent. I mean, all coming with good intentions. This is nothing wrong with intentions. These are all good intentions. You really want to do that, absolutely. But
A for effort.
Exactly, A for effort. But what happened was the bank managers also run on a KPI, so they don't want to they don't want to extend credit and have a lot of non-performing loans. So what they do is, when there's a scheme like this, they pretty much extend the loan for the same people who are doing businesses.
Right.
And in Mangala Samaraweera's time, there was a case actually, because he thought, okay, we'll give he had a percentage that you give the loan only for a startup. Like the business registration has to be within 6 months or like fresh. You know what people did? There were separate agencies. All these big companies, they created, they established new companies just to get the access. And there was a case, there was one guy came and said, I was at a different conversation, all this happened. He said, I really had a need for the two guys. One guy said, I really had a Dirisavi or something. I had a really need. You are saying this Enterprise Sri Lanka, I couldn't extend the loan. Other guy was saying, What nonsense! I got the loan, but of course I got the loan to do for my wedding under the Dirisavi or something.
So there was zero vetting process there.
So there has been vetting, but probably this guy set up a company, business registration, and got the
Wedding business.
wedding business something. He got the loan. He did this wedding at 4% interest rate or 2%. And the guy who really had the need, I mean, he probably have gone with the business proposal and all that. His loan application was rejected. So there's nothing wrong with that model. I mean, nothing wrong. Model is a problem, but there's nothing wrong with the intention. But ideally, there has to be a credit score and all that. With more digitization, at least you can evaluate some of it. That's the way to think about it. Because other thing is people saying, okay, let's start a development bank. Good. I mean, we had development bank. Who is going to put the capital? Someone has to keep capital to run the bank. So who is? I mean, if the taxpayer can be it, but there was a similar attempt being done under President Rajapaksa's time called Lanka Putra Bank. No one really paid.
I can imagine.
No one really paid the loans that they have taken, and I mean, most of the loans were taken by the big politically connected
Yes.
businessmen.
Yeah.
They really didn't settle, and it was conveniently passed to the taxpayer.
Yeah.
That's how the
With
game
no
works.
ROI. But then, why can't this be run like a private equity firm would run their operations, right? They would diversify, and correct me if I'm wrong, but they would pick 20 startups in different verticals, and they would bank on 2-3 of them just
Become
shooting up,
unicorns,
maybe become a unicorn even, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
So
And
it doesn't matter if the others don't do well.
Absolutely. And also another way also to look at, connect it with a output incentive. For an example, okay, after 5 years, if you create, let's say, 100 jobs, if you make it like this unicorn, then you have a, let's say, a tax credit or something. So then
Absolutely.
it's output connect incentivized, because otherwise when you say I give money, they will take the money and disappear.
Right.
But then for you to, I mean, get the benefit, you have to work
give the output.
Exactly, you have to give the output. And definitely it has to be one criterion, has to be the number of jobs created, because that's the need of the
Ultimately
others.
beneficial,
So
yeah,
so
society.
then entrepreneurs are also motivated. They know, okay, we will support, but on this condition. And if you don't deliver it, also there is a disincentive. So then everyone is accountable for what they are delivering. So then there will be bad cases, but you can minimize it. Because otherwise all this capital is going to buy the vehicle, wedding and all that. There's nothing wrong with all that, but of course not at a, at the cost of someone who really need to run a business.
But that seems like such a simple. I mean, okay, yeah, you incentivize businesses by saying, okay, you give us this output that's beneficial to society. It's all great. So why is that not even slightly implemented? Is my main, like, I just can't wrap my head around it. Like, is that because of the level of corruption? Is it like a cultural problem? What do you think it is?
Yeah, that is one side, but also we have to understand this policy. While sometimes as an outsider it's easy to see, but actually when you go into the system, there are so many other factors that is basically diluting that, because ultimately you need to get, probably the capacity of the state is very weak. So when you try to implement such a program, it's not easy to get it done through the state sector, because they don't see in the same, they don't see eye to eye. They may be wondering like why we should do it, and then getting it implemented is very difficult. And also there are other factors coming in, because as I said, then the state banks will be worried, okay, because our portfolio, then now what is going to happen, because they are also earning money probably by extending credit facilities for the state-owned enterprises, for example. So then I'm only saying what I can see at the surface level, but there may be so many other unseen factors that is basically coming from the system. So as a result, these things really doesn't get implemented. So that's why I said you have to have a radical change, and also you have to have the right people internally to get it done. And it's not easy. What we are talking is easy to discuss on a podcast, but execution is very difficult. It's very difficult.
So there are countries that do this though.
Yeah.
So should we not just copy paste their playbook?
Absolutely. That's the way forward. I mean, this can be done. It's not impossible.
Yeah.
It is just that you have to get the right person and get it done. And also the other challenge is to get the right person. It's very difficult with the current government salary structure. Now, while I stand for the government is too big enough. The problem is also it's big enough that the people that should have been in the government are not basically entering the government because the pay is very poor.
The incentives are
Incentives are completely upside down. So as a result, you really cannot attract the right talent, and as a result, it's a vicious cycle. Since you don't have the right talent, they really don't want to improve the system. And to attract the right talent, you don't have the salary structure. When you try to improve the salary structure, you have a very tail-heavy government structure, so you have to increase the salaries from everybody. And when you do that, you have to increase the tax rates. And that is so. That's why you have to first squeeze the bottom, like the bottom of the pyramid, and what is saved has to be incentivized to the top player, and then you can attract the right talent, and then create the system. Even if you offer a VRS, the most the people with the higher level of competence will first leave, because it's a bonus for them, because they get the VRS and they go somewhere and they can also do a job. People who really are at like the low skill level will remain because they basically earn from overtime and this and that. So you maintain quite a broad structure, which is not feasible.
I guess the part I think you also touched on is like we really struggle to wrap our head around. When I think of countries, I think of like certain civilizational countries like China, even India, so on and so forth. They think way ahead. You know, it's ideology, right? It's not like, oh, let's just live for the day, let's just do things for the day. It's not like that. And I find Sri Lankans in general are very patriotic, I find. They love their country. So I don't understand why things that can be done with the signing of a pen from a policy standpoint needs to take 10, 15 years, which I understand there are variables, there are factors, it's human nature and stuff like that.
So that's what I said.
Does it not frustrate you, Dhananath?
No, it frustrates. But I think it's also go with the understanding, because no, you are absolutely right, it frustrates. But that's what I said, believing in a radical sort of a reform process, because otherwise one at a time won't work. But how the policy game unfortunately works is like that. Also, there's a concept called Overton window. Overton window is some reforms are possible only during that
specific time period,
time frame, because that becomes the national conversation. For example,
I get what you're saying.
Because of the crisis, only at least we did the little bit of reforms that we did, because people were concerned. I don't have electricity, I don't have fuel.
We need to do something.
We need to do something. But that moves very fast afterwards. There's some now, if you want to do something regarding disaster management, this is the time, because this is a concern. When President Trump imposed tariff on trade, that was the moment. We should not compromise that. But as I said, but just reacting to those may not take you exactly. We are just reactive. But ideally, you should have like a overarching strategy and you do it. But when there's Overton window, you just grab it and do it as fast as possible. That's how it works. But otherwise, you will see the frustration throughout.
Very interesting.
It's very, I mean, most of the things we've been talking about, it's all kind of dependent on what the government chooses to do at the end of the day. Is there something on a individualistic level that you believe, like, this is a bit, we're digressing a bit, but for young people like us and just other people watching as well, is there something that we can do to kind of contribute to, you know, getting to this not utopian, but, you know, this vision for our country, you know, because I feel like everything we've spoken about, it's all comes down to what the government chooses to do at the end of the day. And that's so frustrating in itself, of course, amongst other things. So
can we undercut the government?
What do you think on an individualistic level?
No, I think the positive side is also with the technological development, to an extent, actually in some of the things you are undercutting the government. I mean, undercutting in the sense it's evolved so fast that somehow you, for an example, let's say earlier electricity only has to be bought from the CB. Still you need to, but now with battery technology and all that, probably there will be a moment that you, with your solar panel, you can store and probably at least you can sustain for a few days in case of a power cut.
Yeah.
Of course, you better to have the connectivity to the CB grid in case something drastically happen and all that.
Does it matter, Dhananath, if they put a tariff on that at 300% and then tax me for every voltage of power I use?
That can happen. But still, what I'm saying is, rather than that level of dependency, it may also slowly come down.
People are
But
taking matters into their own
exactly.
hands.
So there are, of course, the governments also, becoming smarter, and like they are also capturing you somewhere. But that's one way to look at it. The other is, I think this is, as young generation, we should also not give this up. I mean, we have to fight and speak and get even whatever possible. Like even in the menstrual hygiene products taxes, we said, okay, fine. Even if you can't 101%, okay, bringing it to 50% is still some
It's
level of
something,
victory. But it is not adequate at all to see a transformative change. But
Something better than nothing.
something better than nothing, and some battles are, as Razin Sali said, it's long haul game. So it's across the world as well. But I feel there will be another moment probably, like with crisis and something. I mean, I don't expect a crisis, but there may be certain moments that we can get something done, and we have to be prepared for that.
You're thinking very practically, and I understand as CEO of a think tank, you have to, right? You have to, like, you want incremental change is still change, and that's part of it. But especially the menstrual thing, it's so stupid. It's so stupid, I can't even breathe.
True, 100%, 100%. Yeah.
So I want to kind of also talk about something very important is about the IMF. Like we've gone to the IMF 17 times, 17, right? So, but in the past 75 years of independence, we've only had 4 years of a current account surplus, I believe, in the 75 years, despite IMF rules, IMF regulations, so on and so forth, right? So, obviously, there's people who are very much against it, and there's people who say we should advocate it for it. I think she's like, let's do
Depending
the
on the
IMF.
time period, yes.
Yeah. And I personally, history is a great indicator. The IMF has done nothing for us, really. I get that they're trying to make us fiscally responsible because our guys really messed up, but they're not looking for us to grow. And as you rightly mentioned, 2024 interest payments were 57% of revenue, I believe, right?
Yeah.
So public debt is around 100% of GDP, and the IMF forecasts that will only decline to 95% by 2032 by their own estimates, by their own policy. If we have interest payments to pay on our debt, as we do in 2028 as well, we are not going to go past this unless we grow faster than our debt. Do you agree with that sentiment?
100%. Definitely. So IMF is not it's not a solution for all problems. Why we had to go to IMF was we were so badly managed.
Yeah.
We really did not have any other option.
Yeah.
And that's what I said, we have to do reforms beyond IMF. IMF has just given a framework to stabilize the economy.
Yep.
And this stability is not a safe escape route. After stability, you are getting into trouble after one point. It is like, stability is like you're working for something without an increment. If you do the same job without an increment, after one point you will get frustrated for sure. So this is the stability, but stability is important for growth. But after this IMF, you have to basically grow the economy, and only by growing it, we can bring the debt to GDP ratio down. And again, the IMF is, we have to look at it because without that IMF, we really did not have another solution to restructure the debt.
Yeah.
Because when you go to the restructuring table, you have to have a credible partner on your side, even to bring the other creditors to the table.
Exactly.
When you are defaulted, you really do not have a choice. I have also seen a lot of people give criticism. We also have criticism for IMF. But what's the alternative solution? Have you ever heard like a solution? Okay, let's not go to IMF. Let's do something else. There's nothing. It's easy to say all wrong things about IMF.
Absolutely.
But okay, what are we going to do now? People are dying. People are in queues.
Well, my issue is that we've done this 17 times now. And how many more times are we going to keep doing this?
Yeah. So yes, as a joke, I say even people who worked at IMF, Sri Lanka had gone to IMF more than the people who actually worked at IMF. No, the problem was in most of the same thing that we did. We only with IMF we didn't do the reform. It's pretty much on the 17 times. achieve the stability, and we forgot. And then we basically, Razin has a nice phrase, habits of the heart. You move to the same thing that you have been doing.
Right.
So actually, we have done during the COVID time. We did a report. It is clearly shown that you go to an IMF program, and then completely you do the opposite, and then you can see your growth coming down. You are again going to a balance current account deficit, and again you go to the IMF, and again they come and they push. So as a result, that's what I said. If you don't do the policy reform at once, people now feel every time when you go to the IMF is the problem.
Yes, exactly.
You get what I'm saying?
Absolutely, yes.
Because you go to the IMF, they give the austerity measures and all that, and then they say like, okay, you continue there, and then it's like, you go to the doctor, and he gives a thing, and you keep him at the hospital, and then you strictly monitor whatever the thing, and then you go back to the same thing, and again you go to the doctor. After one point, someone outside may think you are going to the doctor is the problem, because every day you are going to the doctor.
The doctor is the problem.
Doctor becomes a problem. So that's
So it's government incompetency that's masked as IMF being some sort of villain, which is what you seem to think.
No, not pointing to this government. Because for how long that we have been after we got the IMF membership in 1950. That is what basically we are doing. Now even this time I am very worried, because IMF program comes to in 2027 March. We are pretty much, only institutional reform pretty much we have done was the central bank independence. Which is
a big thing.
Which is a big thing.
Yeah.
But you can reverse it, no? If they reverse it and if they go back to, because when you are out of even everyone celebrates about the tax collection, all that is very good. But we should not forget, it came under the IMF framework, because without, do you think even this budget, they have to stick to the IMF guideline for get the next tranche. So as a result, they propose something within that framework. Without that, can we really expect that they will bring the budget deficit down? Never. So if we really forget that thing and moving to the habits of the heart, we are definitely in trouble, and probably it will be the 18th, 19th, and rather it's a problem of IMF. IMF also has its problem, no two words about it. We have to do reforms beyond what they have recommended.
Right. Is it not possible though to kind of like, because they are looking to improve our deficits, right? But if we were to just bring in FDI in the ways that you spoke about, radical reform, land, leases, all of those things, then if we can build our reserves much faster, then we could just survive with that, right? Rather than, because building up your current account reserves will take time for that to trickle up.
Yeah, there are two sides for it. Now, when you say building reserves, we need to understand no country is going to settle your debt by reserves. You do it to an extent.
Okay.
How you do it is rolling over. Basically, you borrow money to settle your previous debt.
Right.
That's what every country pretty much does. I do not recommend that approach, but that's what's the
sometimes you have to.
There's good debt and bad debt, right?
Exactly.
Right.
So at the moment we are settling some of our debts through the reserves as well. That is an option. But what we ideally what we do is we improve our credit rating. So then we can borrow money at a lower interest rate and settle some of our debt that we borrowed at a very high interest rate.
Right.
So with that you bring the saving, and then you basically slowly over a period of time you bring it. Because the other challenge is, let's say, reserves. How the government is going to build reserves, or the central bank. Reserves is something, your remittances, tourism, export proceedings all comes to the commercial bank, and central bank is buying it, buying from the bank. How are they going to buy? They also print money to buy. While money printing is not possible under the new central bank act, that is to print money and give it to the government. Now actually to buy the reserves from to build the reserves from the banks, they have to print. Because they don't have savings. Central bank doesn't take savings. Central bank, they don't have, no one can open a savings account at the central bank.
Sure. Do they not have like a liquidity buffer or something like
They have a liquidity buffer. So what I mean is, basically they inject money
Right.
to buy. At the same time, they can, what they inject, they can also absorb as well. They have that tool as well.
Right.
But generally, so basically when you're building reserves, there's nothing wrong with building reserves as well.
Okay.
But when you build the reserves, you also inject again money to the system. But that money is being consumed, because when you, to buy the dollars from the commercial bank, central bank gives rupees to the bank. What are the banks is going to do with these rupees? They are going to give it as loans to people.
Right.
When they give it as loans, of course, people are going to go and consume more and more things. When they consume means you are increasing the demand for dollars again. Because when they go and buy phones, buy laptop, buy whatever. So then you have to be cautious when you are building reserves, which is a good thing, but you have to basically balance both sides. So as a result, what we basically, our strategy has been, you improve the credit rating and then you roll over the debt. You borrow at a lower interest rate to settle previously high interest rate loans. And then you roll it over for a period of time. And that's why the public debt management office has been set up. So that's the strategy.
Right. Okay, interesting. I kind of see the IMF also sometimes as like a geopolitical tool, right, that the US and the Western institutions use. But that's a whole separate story. But do you think we could ever grow out of the IMF?
We should. I don't know at this level whether we are ready to do that, whether we have done enough, because the only way to do that is do the reforms.
Yeah.
To the reforms.
Otherwise, we are going back and forth. So only way to do it is do the reforms and come out
Simultaneously,
radically and do it once and for all, and then we need not to grow. I mean, go back to the IMF. But otherwise, highly likely, because again, another default, there's no other choice.
Yeah.
So do you see us making our obligations in 2028?
In 2028, likely, but it's a matter of time, because as we know, it's like everyone says, okay, tourism, this much comes, so then we can easily pay. But we need to understand it was the same premise that we were in 2010. All that happens as long as everyone sees it as stable. The moment you remember what happened, remember what happened to our remittances. So now it comes at about 600 million, 700 million a month. When the currency was depreciating steeply, not many people, I think, not half, about 25% wasn't coming to Sri Lanka. Why? Because when people are scared, they are not sending money.
Yeah.
So everything works as long as people perceive it as exactly. So now it works perfectly. 2028 we can pay, because what we have to pay is about 2028, about I think 2.5 billion to $3 billion, which can be paid overall for the debt servicing.
Yeah.
That's plus the interest payments.
No, altogether.
Sure.
So every year it's about a 700, 800 million increment. With the economic growth, 5%, 6%, we should be able to manage it. But we should not forget it all with that condition that everyone sees the stability. So stability, people may perceive it's as not stable. Could be for a geopolitical reason. It could be for a climate event, like something goes wrong. It can be a drought, something. Then everything starts collapsing, credit rating, downgrade the rating, and then no one really investing, no one sends money, then it's difficult to pay the creditors. That's where the trouble comes in. So that's where, yes, can, provided that this is smooth enough.
Interesting. So you have hope in that regard. That
Yeah, that's my worries. We are still vulnerable. We are still not out of woods. As in my view, there's a 60% chance that we will go for a second default, because still we are one of the countries which pays highest interest compared to our revenue.
Okay.
Out of the revenue, if every taxes that we all pay, free VAT, with everything, when you put it into a table, out of the countries, we are one of the countries which pays most of it as interest.
Is that taking into account of like all the VAT, the custom duties, everything?
All taxes, all government revenue. If you rank countries, we are, I think, probably at the top, which contributes most of it as interest.
Interest payment. That's not a very nice picture.
Yeah, sorry about it.
So then that again comes down to growing your way out of debt,
Exactly.
right?
Of course.
Only way is growth.
Growth
You
is the
have
only
to
way.
grow.
But then this sort of like even this budget which you have spoken about is not really a growth budget. It's like a subsistence budget,
yeah.
right? As you have rightly claimed.
Growth cannot come. That's why I say, like, you cannot, if you like cricket, you have to play cricket. If you like growth, you have to do reform. You cannot do like, you cannot practice what do you call volleyball and say I want to play cricket. If you want to grow, you go with reforms and probably with the market system, and then.
But not test cricket.
But not the exact. You have to go 2020.
T20 cricket this time
Cricket. Yes,
for
this
economics.
Captain Elmo's analogy. Yes, you have to go T20, not this test cricket.
Captain Elmo is an economist now. So actually one thing I wanted to pick your brain about is like your thoughts on creative economics. One particular thing is, as you said, Sri Lanka owns 85% of the land, and you brought up the railway system in Sri Lanka. Do you know much about the Hong Kong metro system, MTR?
Yeah.
Do you feel like that is something that Sri Lanka could very much bring about here, which would basically quantum leap our economic activity, at least within a certain time period? It's called the rail plus property model, right? Where they buy the land at greenfield values, give it to property developers. They then build that land, and there's a profit sharing agreement. So, actually that subsidizes the government rather than the other way around.
Absolutely.
So when I see things like this, as Inosh said, can we copy paste?
No, absolutely. I think that's one model. Even what we were thinking was even for LRT.
Yes.
You lease out, even for people to get the binding, because people were also concerned sometimes when you are saying you are leasing out it for a private developer, okay, this and that. So what you need to do is you combine it. Okay, we are leasing out, let's say, East Container Terminal, and from that money, we are building the LRT. So people also see by doing this, there's a direct benefit for me.
Right.
Absolutely, the Hong Kong model is a good model. That definitely those public-private partnerships and getting the private sector and giving it to developers, because ultimately you improve the value of the economy to get it going. That's ultimately it's all about value creation.
Absolutely.
You have to create value, and you have to give it to the person who can create value, who has the capital, who have the capacity to build value.
Right. But then that's kind of like that long-term thinking, right? That's okay, we need to do this. It'll take a bit of time, but it will bring up economic growth, development. We'll collect taxes. But the thinking right now is, let's tax every little thing. Let's put cess and VAT and all sorts of things on everything. But I don't understand where the economic grand strategy thinking comes here. Because if we're going to keep doing this, then we're going to default, like you said again, and just keep going. So is there no grand strategy thinking? And if so, what is your grand strategy thinking?
Yeah, no, my grand strategy thinking is targeting it on the trade front, and government basically giving it the land block. Basically, so you have to sort out as much as possible the land titling issue, accelerate that, and you can't wait till every land parcel has a title, but you basically the government own land, because basically the railway, those are the institutions which holds a lot of land. I'll give you another classic example. When you go to Kolpiti station, railway station, if you actually look at, I traveled in that stretch by public transport. Those railway stations and that beach view is quite beautiful. I mean, people pay a premium to get a land with a beach view, right? There's Granville Hotel, which is like a 3-star or 4-star, which is on the other side of the railway. And if you look at how the Kolpiti station being operated, it's a disaster. Even you cannot rent it out. When I checked with some of the railway officers, they said there's a clause that even if you're renting it out, it is for a small, about 10 years or something like that. So as a result, even you cannot rent it out for some commercial purposes properly. But actually, that Kolpiti railway could have been like a multi-storied building or an apartment, which you government need not to invest money. You just need to lease it out or rent it out. Someone asks to do, and your railway line goes underneath that. There can be a motel or whatever that thing, and you nicely run it. And if you look at, and those are all prime properties. In another country, can you even get a hotel at a reasonable rate near a
Yeah.
railway station. They are prime property. Same with post offices. So there are ways that you can do it and basically get the money to run for public service. But now what is happening is our railway is also bad. Government basically leaking out money from that. Public is also not happy with that. No one is happy. We are having a lose-lose
situation.
for everybody.
Yeah. But then that's kind of where creative economics
Exactly.
comes in, right?
Absolutely. So that's the way to on the grand strategy. But I still think while you can do all that, don't go for project, but you do the macro stuff. Of course, you can go to the creative side of it, but don't try to get only to the creative. I mean, you don't check this project, that project, but you do
The macro stuff first.
macro stuff simultaneously. Then the creative thing will automatically
Automatically
happen. That the investor will come because they will come up. The entrepreneurs knows you cannot really think for them. No,
Yeah.
they see the value proposition. They bring up with the concept. The problem is now you don't have the space for them to even think because you are so restricted. They will come up. I just said like it's a railway station, has to be an apartment or something. They will bring a better idea, gaming center or something,
Sure.
which I cannot even think about because someone sees the value completely differently.
Sure. Do you think that Sri Lanka will ever kind of open itself up from a trade front? Because we seem very skeptical of foreign foreigners, foreign players.
Yeah.
And I can understand to some degree as someone who studies geopolitics of being skeptical towards certain countries. But to close yourself out economically, I think we're the most closed in South Asia still.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. So we will never achieve economic grand strategy if we cannot plug and play amongst great powers, right? And position ourselves in the middle and not get caught to macro headwinds or external headwinds. So in your opinion, how do we get to that position where we can remain sovereign, can remain like economically viable, but where we can plug into global supply chains?
Yeah. So
without being bullied.
Yeah. So but the history what happened was also before for why we went on that like more close sort of a setup was during the war. To finance the war, we basically started taxing most of the imports.
Oh, is that how it started?
Yeah, because it was there since 72 and 77 somewhat opened up, but that was also not a half big job.
Yeah.
And then to finance the war, we increased the tariff rates on everything. So as a result, this is the political economics work. So as a result, lot of those guys who were protected locally, because now there were a new set of business community came just to sell it for the domestic market. Even they were not unproductive compared to the global level because they had to charge higher tariffs on imports to an extent to collect revenue to run the war. And now the political economy work. Now these guys came up, they were supporting the political parties, campaign financing, and now when you try to remove that barrier, these guys are basically having a party with the same political icons.
Yeah.
So as a result, it really didn't come down. And now as a result, you say let's export and all that, you have no chance of exporting because you are so unproductive. The same product goes to the global market. Others are basically competing.
You can't compete on price.
You can't compete in your price or quality.
Right.
Because don't forget, sophisticated consumer is also required for you to become a sophisticated, like do the product. If your audience is asking higher quality, of course you have to adjust for that. So if you are having a very sophisticated who have watched like nice podcast, good audio, camera, they will always come and comment. Right? But if you have a very, unsophisticated customer, you are becoming mediocre. Yes. So that's exactly what happened. So our products were not competitive.
Right.
So on your question whether we will open up, we should. We have no choice. Why? Even if we run, our demographic is going to hit us sooner because you are having an aging population. When you age, your consumption patterns are, your medication and all that will grow. But on the other things, you are not growing. So then you will hit anyway, probably after 20, 30, 40, you will have a big wall.
Right.
So I think we have to open up, But at your point on not getting bullied, absolutely, because there are, you know it better than I do, there's geopolitical reality at the same time.
Yeah.
India is there, so you really cannot avoid India. But one way to connect with them is also because South Indian states growing at a remarkable
Enormous
rate,
rate, yeah.
11% growth. So best is to get connected to their supply chains, but it will come also at a political cost. Because when you're connected, you have to manage a better relationship, otherwise it can go to another geopolitical challenge. So that's what you have to keep in mind.
Interesting. Can you kind of touch on the demographics part on this? Because I think when you talk about economics, that's not something that's very often considered.
Correct.
But it is a very serious issue, right?
Yeah.
Sri Lanka is aging. So how do we kind of survive that issue? China has a very big problem.
Correct.
But I think they will kind of supplement that with robotics and AI, and I think that is what they are going for. We don't have the technological capability to kind of even do that. So are we going to now bring in immigrants?
Yeah, so I think that's one way to look at it. But I think on the demographic issue, not many people aware that our population basically contracted. You can see it, the best way to look at it is you go and speak to your school and the rector or like the principal. Earlier, getting to grade 1 is a challenge, no? People did like fraud, birth certificates and all that. If you studied in an international school, that was not the problem. But if it's a government school that has some 5-kilometer radius or something, and people did a lot of stuff. But just go and ask. They are cutting down classes. Because with COVID and all that, people were not getting married and they did not have children as it was before. So as a result, now from 2020-21, now the population, you can see the impact now. So now if this trend is going to continue, number of marriages have come down, population has shrunk. So as a result, your dependency ratio is going up. At the same time, with healthcare and all that, people tend to live longer, and the population is coming down. So what is the option? Again, one option is allowing migration, which I highly endorse. We should allow people to work. I mean, if our people can go and work in, Stockholm and New York and everywhere, if they can compete and doing well, I mean, why not? If they go themselves and spending a lot of money and everything and going and competing and even, sending some money back also as remittances, why should not we allow and work and allow it to happen? So definitely that's one option. The other one is moving that technological direction. But given our dynamics, I think better is to allow people to move, and work. Because also there's economic theory, it's called the Scrabble theory. Because when you work with different people, you're working with like a diverse genetic pool, so you tend to become more creative.
Interesting.
Because that's what San Francisco did, no?
Yeah.
Because if you look at San Francisco, all are immigrants.
Yeah.
Because you are coming from different backgrounds, you're thinking differently, you bring a lot of talent together.
And ideas.
And that's what innovation means.
Yeah.
Startups and innovations means that, that's the culture, no? Like you have an open space to work, people meet at the, restaurant over a coffee, you discuss, that's how things spark, you come to a partnership, you invest money. That's how the startup culture, right?
Yeah.
And everyone is in a very similar vicinity.
Absolutely, and you see what the other guy is doing, how he behaves, and how he pitch an investor. That's how you become a product of the people that you associate with.
Yeah.
So then that's how. So then only when you allow the competitive people to come, that's how you basically improve your productivity. That's like the Scrabble theory. If you have one letter, probably you can do, your options are limited. But when you have 2 letters, probably you have now a little bit more options. But when you have 3 letters, now you have more options. If you have a number, then you have more
Right, it's like a
options.
compounding effect.
Exactly,
almost.
that's a compounding effect. So that's how, if we are serious about everyone, as I said, so on startup, people think it's a credit issue, but it's, as I said, a labor issue. You really don't have people with good ideas.
Sure.
It's not people are coming with ideas. There's a synergy. Like when you come with your thing, I come with my thing, but when I expose to that, then
that creates something new.
exactly.
Yeah.
So that's how we have to think about it. So definitely opening up on migration is one way to look at it. Look at what is the current status now. If you are married to a foreigner, your wife or husband cannot work.
In the sense,
In the sense, like you have to get a separate license to do that. Imagine my wife is a foreigner.
yeah, she cannot work here.
She cannot work. She can work, but she has to go and get a permission from the immigration.
Interesting. Okay.
Even after being married to a Sri Lankan.
Yeah, things are worst. Actually, if the Sri Lankan female married to a foreign husband, basically that person's life is depending on the marriage, because
Right, for the visa.
that's for the visa. If it's a divorce, pretty much, I mean, all his wealth has to be leave here, and
Yes.
so it's quite.
Yes. Yes. Oh, ho, 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 ho. Yeah, that's no incentive for them
Yeah.
to really come here, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think we can kind of
Yeah.
wrap up, but I would really like to know, maybe let's get into your personal vision. Where do you kind of see Advocata going? What do you want Sri Lanka, what do you want Advocata to achieve? I know your 10-year anniversary is coming up.
Yeah. Congratulations on that.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, so I see Advocata as like pretty much improving the economic literacy among people, because we play in both ends. We want to get the policy ideas to people and build the pressure from that. Like when people are aware, there cannot be a better force than that. They will demand for the reform. But at the same time, your policy ideas, we also, all political parties reach out to us for data and all that. So everyone asks, we give the data.
All of them?
Pretty much, I mean, no, not all political, I mean, the all main political parties,
right.
even the completely, like the left side of the spectrum also reaches out to us. Say like, what's the date numbers? And sometimes we are not seeing eye to eye, but I think that's fine. You
Sure.
can have a opinion difference and perfectly fine.
Sure.
So how I see it is, yes, create that and become like the change agent of the policy reforms is how I see it, but also being present in all three languages. So that's how I see it. Yeah, not many people believe like I'm also like an easygoing person. I'm also not like, I'm not saying I'm going to achieve this, that, because world is so dynamic. We have to also agile. I mean, adapt.
yeah.
So I don't know. At the moment, I still see the space that Advocata has a role on shaping up policy,
Absolutely.
and according to the market principles, if
Thank you
we
for
are
doing
not
that.
relevant, we will also be, I mean, going out of the market. I mean,
Yeah.
that's how the game works.
Yeah.
We'll get you a government subsidy.
Yeah, so that's how it is.
Okay, I mean, personally, like the work you've done with Advocata, I know a lot of people have become more interested in economics, and not just silly economics, right? But actually want to dig into the policy, want to like, I mean, we have certain friends, like would never watch them, like, watch educational content sometimes, but they're watching you on Advocata because they're interested in Sri Lanka's trajectory and so on and so forth. So just want to say that is something
It's
that
awesome.
It really is. Do you feel like, what's your personal philosophy in the sense of like living life? Because you spoke about your English and you also said like there was some shame in it, but obviously there is no shame in it, but how did you kind of switch your mindset to go, I'm going to do this. I don't care what people say. I don't care about anything. I'm going to do it. And you stuck with it and went with it. Do you have any advice for people on that?
Haven't thought about it. But no, I think it is, how shall I say? You don't take yourself too serious. Just become the normal person. Give it a try. Sometimes it works, sometimes it fails. Sometimes it requires, maybe if there's something called luck, maybe you need some of it, but you have to work hard even if it to work on your favor or not. I haven't really thought of it. But my philosophy is like, you just live. I mean, you enjoy. Things work.
Enjoy.
You enjoy the moment. Enjoy what you do. I mean, it's easy to say, but enjoy in the sense, like live in the sense, it's all part of it. Like, there are,
Just be human.
just be human. Be just that person, and you embrace it.
Were
as
you
it is.
always this way?
Pretty much. I don't think, I
Interesting.
mean, it's just because for what I say, I also get criticism, done mistakes. and it is just as it is. I mean, try to be humble and as much as possible and keep down to earth and understand the first principles how it works. But don't take too seriously. Like just let
Just
it
chill.
be. Just chill.
Just chill.
Absolutely, just chill.
Yeah.
Things fall in place. If it doesn't, hard luck.
It is what it is.
But it is.
At least you tried, right?
At least you try.
Yeah, of
Absolutely,
course.
you try.
Yeah. Do you have any advice for a 25-year-old Sri Lankan? Would you tell them to stay here or go? Leave the country. Go to Dubai, Australia. Well, I don't want to say UK. It's a disaster. Let's say Dubai.
It depends on, to be honest, I don't have a straight answer. If you're looking on your personal, I don't see any wrong that you're leaving for better prospects. Situation is not, if you're not willing to fight and like make it a place, probably you better leave. Better leave in the sense, not like, not in that sense,
of course.
but if you're really looking for something settled and get faster, quicker, probably it will take few more years to reach where you really want to be. Otherwise, you have to waste a little bit of time to see with a hope, with
Yeah.
no assurance that we will succeed, and give it a try.
Yeah.
That would be the advice, depending on your choice. And there's nothing wrong with leaving. I think people should have the freedom, and there are ways that you can contribute back as well. But if you have the patience and really have something to fight and do, then better stay. Otherwise, you need faster results, maybe
Right.
consider bit options.
But do you think it's worth it? Like, if you do have the opportunity to stay, be patient, do you think that will bring about a better, let's say, a better outcome?
Depending on how you want to see it. In my personal thing, I feel I value the fight, even if you lose it.
Fair.
So if you value the fight,
You'll stay.
but with no assurances again that either you will win or but extent that you will succeed, then stay. But if you really want the win or the output, then consider.
Okay. Okay.
Right.
Anything
Thank you so
else?
much. Yeah, I think that's
You're good?
Yeah, all good.
Dhananath Fernando, thank you for coming.
Thank you so
very
much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure.